Hey guys, Mrs. Gatch here. Today what you're going to be doing in Digital Media 6 is that you guys are going to be editing the pictures that we took on Monday with our DSLRs in the Photos app. I'm going to be making a tutorial video that we will be watching very quickly. It's only going to be about 5 to 8 minutes, but it just gives you a nice overview of how to use the app, edit your pictures in a more advanced way and some really cool features, and then to turn them in. All you're gonna have to do by the end of the day, just turn in about your top 3 to 5 photos, but really spend a lot of time editing and doing what you can do in order to improve them. Once you guys are done, if you have any other missing work to work on, you can do it and turn it in, or you can just work quietly at your computer. Please do not disturb anybody, listen to music loudly, etc. I hope you are on your best behavior for Mr. Williams. If you have ever any questions though, you can write me on Google Chat, or you can write me an email and I'll get back to you. I look forward to seeing you guys next week, and have a great long weekend. Bye. Hey guys, Mrs. Gatch here. Today I'm going to show you how to edit your pictures in using the Photos app on in your Mac. I think actually it has improved a lot over the past couple of years. It has a lot of features that programs like Lightroom would include that you usually have to pay for. You just have to look for them a little bit. So let's go ahead and check them out. So on Monday, you guys already uploaded your pictures that you took. And usually the easiest way to find your pictures would be obviously in your imports. When you are ready to edit, it's quite easy actually. I'm gonna go ahead and start out with a portrait, and then we'll also do one kind of like a landscape here so you can see the different things you can do. So I'm going to open up this picture here of myself, and when you see it opens up like this, you might not have a lot of options, especially if you've maximized the window. But where you're going to want to go to is the edit button right up here, and then it's going to open up all of these options. Now what you might have is that it is all closed up like this, and what it does, it just makes it very simple for you to do what you need to do. So let's say you wanted to adjust the light, you can click this here. Color, you can desaturate it or really saturate it, mess with black and white, etc. If you ever wanted to undo something you've done, you can click these little blue checks there, and it works out. I did want to go through here what undo would also be this backwards arrow. I did want to explain to you what the different settings do, so that way you guys have a good idea of what your edits are, just besides visually trying it out, which I always think is really good. So exposure is probably the easiest one to explain, where it would just talk about like how bright or dark something is. You want to make sure that your pictures are always well exposed, but you don't want to do it to a point where it takes away any detail or makes it hard to see. Brilliance is probably just a softer touch with that in regards of dealing with your light. So here, maybe if I wanted to bring down the brilliance a little bit, but maybe bump up my exposure, I could do that. And the good thing is when you are editing, it's all subjective. What you feel looks best is really what it's going to be, because it is your photography. We have highlights and shadows, or just the lights in the pictures. I like to say like the blacks or the whites. Shadows here, if I turn it all the way down, you can see it gets a lot darker. Shadows, if I turn it up, it gives it more like a matte look. It takes them away. You can make up a bit more details. Brightness. It's not too hard here. You guys just have to understand like what would be the best point for you. Contrast, if I turn it all the way up, it's going to give it a very defined look. All the way down, it gives it too much of an undefined look, almost too matte. So remember, you always want to do everything in moderation. In regards to color, there's saturation, vibrance, and cast. Saturation really just will bump this all the way up very harshly, or if you turn all the way down, it takes down the color. I think vibrance is just how bright the colors are. So you can, I like to bump up my vibrance more than messing with my saturation. And if you see the cast here, it almost has to deal with, like, I would suppose the light. Like this looks very orangey and this looks very more kind of green, so I'm not going to go ahead and touch it. Black and white, I don't want the picture to be black and white. Something that I always do like students to see is the retouch option. We are feminist photoshoppers in this class, so retouching is okay, but it's just sometimes to get rid of those little imperfections. So if I wanted to zoom in, which I'm going to do, we'll see here this is not exactly a very focused photo, but let's say I wanted to get rid of a small belt blemish I have. I can go ahead and just click right there, this little paintbrush, and you're gonna see that my brush, like it becomes a little circle. My brush is quite too big, so I'm gonna bring it down because the more detailed, the tighter it is, it'll pick up better detail, and I'll just click on there, and you will see that eventually it will get rid of any small blemish that I would want. Now remember, you're only getting rid of things that you absolutely do not need, that you feel like would take away from a photo. Please don't go all crazy and like put it all the way up and be like, oh, that's it, I'm erasing my eye. Obviously, it's gonna look weird, okay? So, did a little bit of retouching there, but if I ever wanted to turn it off, I can click that button. Now, if you go ahead and just open all of these up, you'll see that there are so many different kinds of options to mess with. Things like curves and levels are much more advanced, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't try to check them out. Your white balance is how the colors show up in your picture. So, if I was gonna do maybe a skin tone white balance, it would go ahead, I could actually use this little eyedropper and then take a picture of my skin tone, and it would balance the colors to my color. So it makes it, it made it a lot more cooler and a little bit more pink, but you could also do it where you adjust it as so. Okay, so that's being adjusted to my skin tone. Temperature, tint. Temperature is the blues or the yellows in your picture. Tint are the greens and the reds. But I'm not gonna mess with this because I actually really liked what my deal was before. Curves, I'm gonna leave that there if you ever wanted to mess around, but basically it's, you can pick different points on this and move it up or adjust it, and it gives you a lot better editing options. Not better, I guess just more specific, but this is more of an advanced photographer's tool, and eventually we'll get that, especially if you take me in 7th and 8th grade for photography. For your definition, this has to do with like the edges of your pictures, so of like the pixels. So if I turn it all the way up, it's a lot more defined. Down, it's just a bit more refined there. Selective color, I really like this one because what it does is it will take a certain color and just adjust that one, which I think is really interesting. So for example, you can kind of see the purple in the background. I can change the hue of some of those things, but you see it's all in the picture. So maybe if I just pick this little eyedropper and pick that color there, let's see what would happen if it would adjust it. So as you can see with selective color, it sometimes can affect quite a bit. And this one works a little bit different than it does in Photoshop. I'm not really gonna touch it. I don't like it that much. Noise reduction, if something is very noisy, you can soften it, or you can leave it as is. I can see it's a very minor detail, but some people really like it. And vignette, I do always like to show this one here because it's either you can make like the edges dark or not. I like to add a little vignette if I was doing a portrait, and you can decide how strong it is, and it can be white or black. So that was my photo that I have adjusted. And the final one that I really do want to tell you that people always miss is your crop. You would be looking for your crop here. It's actually up here. So I'll hit done with that, but I have to make sure, if once I hit done, it's going to take away the option. So make sure you have it open. You go to crop. And what I really like to do is I like to make sure that, so if your aspect isn't open, I like to make sure that I keep it with the original one, because if you do freeform, guys, it's going to allow you to edit your picture however you please, but then when you want to print it out, it's not going to look really good. So with my crop here, I'll keep the original, and usually with your rule of thirds or a portrait, my hair is really high here, you want to try to keep those, your eyes in the top half of like the upper thirds of the picture. So I'm not going to actually spend too much time cropping. I think I cropped this quite well. I could also flip it if I wanted to. Very nice. Or if I wanted to turn it into a portrait and not a landscape. I mean, a landscape and not a portrait. So if you ever also wanted to experiment, there are some filters already that give you some options, and you can also adjust the intensity of them. So don't be afraid to check it out. Also, don't be afraid to check out black and white. I think they have some really nice options. So that was that with the portrait. But if I wanted to go ahead and do something, let's say with a landscape, I'm gonna go ahead and pick this picture here. Actually, no, we'll stick with this one. This is one I took on my phone on my bus ride. So I'll go through the entire editing process again. I'm gonna go to edit, and this time I'm gonna start out with my crop. I'm gonna see what is exactly that I want people to look at. I'm gonna stick with my original aspect ratio, and I'm gonna find that here, this is all kind of unnecessary for me. So I'm gonna crop this and maybe crop that a little tighter. And let's try to move it like this. This is not exactly a very well composed picture, but I'm gonna do the best. Now, if you saw what I did when I was cropping it, is whatever was of it the most points of interest within my picture, I put it within these points here in the middle. So obviously the dad and his kid, the tree was a little bit of a point of interest, and then I just used this to kind of line everything up, the horizon of the street. So I'll hit that. I'm going to go to adjust, and now I'm going to have a bit of fun with my picture. So let's see, I might want to turn down the brilliance. I might pick up my brightness a little bit. And like, guys, remember, there is no right or wrong way to do this, okay? You find what you think looks best. I for sure think that with my saturation, I'm gonna bump this one up. And my vibrance. Actually, maybe turn down my exposure a little bit. Let's see what if I do with those highlights. If I bring them up. All right. Things I want to retouch here, not really. I'm just going to have to leave it as it is. If you wanted to see how messing around with curves works out, I'll go ahead and show you. So with curves, I'm going to bring this part up here a little bit. Sometimes they say it's nice to have like a little S, but there is no right or wrong way to do that. You can see now how it works out. You can slide this and forward, and it's just, yeah, fun and nice to see. I can compare this to that. See, one's much more dramatic photo, one isn't. So this one really had more shadows. This one does not. All right. I'm not going to mess with my definition. I am going to put a little, maybe not so much of a vignette. Now I see here, I probably want to bump up my brightness a bit. And there's my photo. Like I said, it's not exactly my favorite photo that I've taken. I try to make some adjustments, but overall, I feel pretty good about it. All right, now when you're ready to turn in your pictures. When you're ready to turn in your photos, there's a lot of different ways that you can do it. If you went to turn them in on Google Classroom, I'll show you here how to do it. Let me just minimize this. So let's say I was just going to add something on a Classroom. All right, so I wanted to add, let's say, a file. All right, you want to go ahead and drop it in. When you go to hit browse, if you want to find your pictures, it's going to be hard to find them here. You got to actually go down to where it says media, and if you go to photos, in photos, that's where they will all be. So that's just something that I feel like a lot of people don't really get. Just make sure you pay attention to that, okay? And then you'll be able to turn them in. Remember, you're going to be turning in about 3 to 5 of your best pictures, so I cannot wait to see them. If you guys have any other questions, you are more than welcome to go ahead and just email me. But more than anything, the best part is just experimenting with what you have. Good luck, guys. Bye.